Hello, everybody. Welcome to EduMatch. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm excited about tonight's episode. We're going to be talking game-based learning, and we have an awesome crew here to chat about it with us. So we're going to start things off with some panel introductions. So in about 30 seconds, would you mind introducing yourself? Let's start first with Glenn.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, I think it might have froze. Okay. All right. So what we'll do is that hopefully we'll get Glenn unfrozen, but let's start. Oh, there we go. Okay. Go
Am
ahead.
I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Sorry.
Mind starting over, no problem.
So, hello, everyone. My name is Glenn Irvin. I am a former Spanish teacher, now a technology integrationist and instructional coach in Sauk Rapids, Minnesota. I have used, as far as game-based learning is concerned, a really big fan of Minecraft. Used that in my Spanish classrooms, and then we'll probably have some more discussion about those kinds of things.
Wonderful. Well, welcome back, Glenn. Great to have you here. All right, and next up we have Stuart.
Hi, I'm Stuart Claggett. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Dig Games. We primarily make game-based learning products, focusing primarily on social studies products. And I've only actually been involved with this for the past 3 years. Software's been my background prior to this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Tweet and Talk. All right, next up we have Amy.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm Dr. Amy Hager, and I am an English teacher at an alternative school. And my game-based learning experience is a little different from other people. I work with children with extreme emotional disturbance and behavior needs, and we use kind of the old school games, card games, board games, to teach social skills.
That is really interesting. So can't wait to hear more about that and to dive into that. So welcome to Tweet and Talk. All right. And last but not least, we have our moderator, Matthew.
Hi, I'm Matt Farber. I'm a former social studies teacher. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Northern Colorado currently. I teach in the Technology, Innovation, and Pedagogy program here. I teach teachers, basically, teacher education. I have a background, of course, in game-based learning and educational technology. I wrote 2 books on game-based learning, Gamify Your Classroom, which is in a 2nd edition. Game-based Learning in Action is the current book. Co-authored a UNESCO paper on the limitations and strengths of using digital games as, quote, empathy machines. And that's basically it for now. I'm very excited to hear about the use of board games and card games in the classroom, by the way. That's one of my favorite teaching tools.
Sweet. That is awesome. So welcome. Glad to have you here. So go ahead and take it away for us with our first question.
Sure thing. So, I mean, I have some familiarity with the panelists, so I kind of like cherry pick the questions here. So I'm going to start off with a few myth busters, because these are some things I've been thinking about lately as far as why we use games, kind of going back to, I always assume that everybody just knows starts with why from Simon Sinek, you know, like, why are we doing this? Not what are we doing, right? So these actually pertain to why with game-based learning. So why are we teaching with games? It's a loaded question, by the way.
I guess I could go first. Could you guys hear me? Yep. I would say it's not only is it, of course, we can always just say it's engaging. You know, that's a generic.
Slightly froze for a second. You know, I'm using my freezing spell on people tonight, so. Well, why don't we move down the panel, I guess? Or unless he unfreezes. Are you unfrozen, Glenn? You froze. We missed all of that.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say I don't know why I'm freezing.
Minnesota.
it's freezing here, but it really isn't. That's the generic answer, is that it is very engaging, but it's much more complex than that. I would say that, why are we teaching with games? Because there's a lot that we can do to be able to connect it to any kind of curriculum, any grade level, and make it a compelling way to go ahead and learn.
Great. Do I save my comments to the end, Sarah?
No, you can go ahead and jump in with whatever.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to build off of that a little bit, and it's kind of what I was thinking about with the question, is this like tyranny of engagement that when I speak to some teachers when they use games in the classroom, they think, or they may say to me, this is anecdotal, that you know, it's a constant feedback, or the idea that you have that feedback all the time, and it's like boom, 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 like nonstop engagement. But we know from flow theory that engagement does not necessarily mean you're constantly bombarded with, like, you know, action. And even in some of the better video games, like Stardew Valley, which is a game of gardening, or actual gardening, or yoga, right? Or yoga, or cooking, ironing for some, dog walking. Those are flow activities, and those are pretty engaging, actually, for some people to just stop and think. And we all do it differently. So yeah, I think there's this sort of a trapping of engagement. Like, we use games because it's engaging. I don't know if I fully buy into that. So I do agree. I would like snap along, right? So we do to agree with your answer there. All right, I'll pass. Next.
I'm sorry. I wanted to kind of hop in with the engagement. Can you guys hear me? Make sure I hit the right button. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Actually, with board games, it's almost like the opposite for us. What we're noticing is that, like, you know, I'm that older millennial where, like, I know how to use an iPhone, but I also like knew how to like tape songs off the radio, and so many things that we learned about how to like wait our turn. Like, we used to have to wait to whatever was on the radio. Like, you had to wait for that hot 9 at 9 to hear the song you wanted to hear, or if you wanted to watch a TV show, you better wait for it to come on Thursday. And if you miss it, I don't know what to tell you. All those things kind of taught us how to just wait our turn, be patient. Even video games, like if you were at a friend's house and you were playing Luigi, like, you better just wait. And you had to wait until the other person was finished, and you had to sit there if you lost and wait for the game to start back up again. And kids are not getting that practice anymore, because the games just they finish and they're on to the next one. Kids are playing for these games hours and hours, and just that instant feedback, when it translates into the classroom, it's a lot of, she won't help me. As soon as the hand goes up, they need a teacher to come over and just give them that immediate feedback. They want to rush through their work because they're just so used to being able to finish and go to the next thing, instead of kind of taking their time with things. And so to see some children that are a little rambunctious, like sitting and learning how to play gin rummy, is just where they just kind of have to wait, or Uno, like if they're finished and they're out, like they have to wait for the next round. So I think it's kind of like a catch-22. We want to engage them, but at the same time, like, we need to make sure that they're having those like turn-taking skills and that patience, because they are becoming explosive in classes at sometimes.
Sure. Well, this goes back to Vygotsky, right, with self-regulation and social games in particular. Yeah, so I think some of those are the most terrific things to use in a classroom. Even digital games, having students play in pairs because they're together in the classroom. Any other comments from the panel?
I guess the only thing I would add to that is I think that games, you know, digital games or card games provide another opportunity with game-based learning for educators perhaps to get a student learning where they can't actually learn in the traditional environment. We've seen lots of examples where a student actually sat down with our game, but they were not learning the content through traditional methods. But as soon as they sat down with the game, and this individual was actually an autistic individual, and they excelled as soon as they got into the game. They were sort of in their environment, and you know, just sort of exploded with knowledge and picking up on skills that they couldn't you know, demonstrate to the teacher in another way.
Sorry, I was muted. Interesting. So my next question has to do with the, well, where we, some of my research recently and work has been looking into something called constructionist gaming. So it is constructionism, where students, or learners, I should say in general, learn by creating a digital or not, or physical tangible artifact. So they're learning by making something that's personally meaningful to them, which is based on the work of Seymour Papert at MIT and constructionism. So it's a little different than constructivism. If you're not familiar, constructionism has to do with creating some artifact that's personally meaningful. And Seymour Papert worked or studied originally under Jean Piaget. And his work, he passed away like 2 years ago. His work is carried on at MIT by Mitch Resnick and the team at Lifelong Kindergarten who runs Scratch. And constructionist gaming is really that intersection of playing and making, right? So we see that right up front on Minecraft, because you've got your survival and creative mode. And then I've also seen that, of course, with Scratch, because you create, remix, and share, right? And to me, that is really getting beyond the point of the game as this silver bullet learning machine or teaching machine, where we expect the game to do everything, to teach, assess, and give feedback and everything all at once. But that's still, most people know that's not true, but we still get a lot of that, right? And to go even beyond reflections, where students are creating these artifacts. I've also observed this with teachers who use tools like outside tools like Twine to create interactive fiction stories after students play a game. It's almost like reading a story and then writing a fan fiction story about it. With card games like Uno, for example, as you mentioned, Amy, having students play the game Uno and then maybe make their own version of it, either themed on content or just a remix of it, right? And that's really what constructionist gaming is. So I was wondering if the panel could comment on the promises of constructionist gaming, which is, there's a really good book on that as well, I should say, by Yasmin Kafai and I believe his name is Quinn Burke, called Connected Gaming from MIT Press.
Can you hear me, Matt? I'm not frozen. That's good.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about even in the previous question, Paul Darbassi is writing a series on Dungeons and Dragons and the power of that inside of a classroom and the way that you can use that to basically go ahead and develop these amazing storylines, have creativity, still have this cooperative and collaborative community that you would have in a non-digital format. So I was thinking that it's very similar to you, where you would be able to use it in a English language arts course, or even at the middle school level or elementary level, as you develop these storylines to be able to go ahead and play together, just completely out of someone's imagination, instead of it being kind of this driven towards a specific goal. The goals are developed then by the students themselves.
Yeah, I read that. It's pretty amazing, right? Any other comments? Or use cases, case study examples, or just personal use of constructionist gaming, where students play and then make, where the game-based learning actually becomes an inspiration for project-based learning, in effect, or production-centered classrooms.
I have noticed when, it's not like the high-tech games, but when we played board games and then they've been given the opportunity to make a board game about a story or something that we've read, I notice they start with the questions, and they're usually very simple questions, and then they start to understand, like, no, to make this game hard, you need to have more complex questions. So I'm interested to see, like, how they begin to challenge themselves. Like, they know what that caliber is supposed to be like, if it's going to be a fun game. Fun games are hard. They're not easy to win. So I'm interested to see how they start to see the patterns and just, apply them to their task. So that's interesting.
That is interesting. I spoke for another article I'm writing for a blog post to Matt Leacock, who's the designer of Pandemic and Forbidden Island and many different really hard cooperative games. Many have won awards, very popular games. They're also really difficult to play. And he said that was on purpose because the role playing is not as meaningful unless the game is super hard, is actually what he said. Because when the game is super hard, suddenly you have this superpower that nobody else has. So I thought that was quite interesting. How have you used roles to create students as superheroes in the classroom? Anyone in the panel, of course. I'm going to call on Glenn. I know he's used roles in the classroom.
All right, I'll pop in. I think that Glenn is frozen, so I'll like call an audible. Oh, there you are. Okay, never mind. Go.
I keep getting frozen. I was thinking about when we used Minecraft as far as in the classroom, one of the most powerful uses of Minecraft actually had to do with role playing. We gave us students the options of being a variety of different roles to be able to have this commerce system where students basically pretended to be specific characters and specific professions inside of the game, which gave them ownership as far as their character, and then also part of this community that we were building. So it was a really cool way of using the roles to make it more realistic, if we want to say that, but also to give them a compelling reason to go ahead and want to succeed.
Great. Anybody else? No? Okay. How can games support social emotional learning skills like empathy and compassion? That's to anyone.
I'll hop in.
Okay.
Particularly when you've got like different either social emotional levels or even grades in alternative schools, sometimes we end up, it's kind of like a schoolhouse, because of our smaller numbers. But it's interesting to see the kids kind of slow down and want to help each other with the game. And particularly if they are, enemies, otherwise they want to help each other win the game. They know that if they work, they kind of know like if we work together, we can have this 5 minutes a day to play with this game. Another thing with that social emotional development, I've worked with girls who have, been abused, sexually and things like that. And, when that 10, 11-year-old, when that happens, something, warps and twists in your head in regards to how you're supposed to interact with, a male-female relationship. And I've seen where just a game of Go Fish can turn where you have a girl who thought that she needed to always be pretty and cute for a man, now just has this platonic relationship that you can just play a game. It doesn't have to be where you're flirting or doing anything for him. It's just an exchange of a leisure activity. And then I've seen her kind of take that and generalize it out into other activities, whether we're doing group work or just sitting next to a classmate. It doesn't have to be anything inappropriate. And because it's not a teacher structured thing, and just kind of sit back and watch, that dynamic is helpful.
Great. Thank you.
All right, I'll pop in as well, if that's all right. Yeah. So I was using gamification with my students, so I know that there's like a difference, but I would say that the collaboration was definitely ramped up through that, and that everyone was kind of responsible for one another in different ways. So I feel like that really helped to establish some of the soft skills in the classroom that we traditionally don't grade or directly teach, but we want to increase these soft skills to foster this sense of humanity. So definitely cultivate what our students already bring to the table and help them to grow that capacity in themselves.
Great. So I see this comment on the side here about younger students and getting younger students involved in constructionist gaming. So, we actually see that already with Minecraft, because Minecraft gets more and more, I guess, complex the older you get, right? Younger children can build and create mini games and those sorts of things, where older children can get much more advanced with the tool set that Minecraft provides. But there are a lot of different games that have level editors. But I would say just naturally, if you watch children, they're making games. That's just the work of childhood, right? So, bringing students and keeping that going, rather than saying, well, here's this game. And the game often may teach much better than traditional methods. But what would happen next, right? So it's always that, it's really about transfer of learning, right? How do you know the student's not learning the game? And that's it, right? Or students don't always, kids or anybody really, they don't always reflect on the processes of the game. So the game is assessing you as you go. If it's the group dynamic, playing a card game, or if it's a very complex video game, you're being assessed as you go. However, it's the teacher's role to have those areas of reflection, and then perhaps to get the students making and creating. Design thinking, systems thinking. And it brings a lot of the I would say, all the 4 C's together of collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and I always forget the 4th C no matter what. I need a reminder.
I don't even remember myself. You said creativity. Did you say collaboration?
Yeah, I think creativity, collaboration, critical thinking. I don't want to Google it.
I got nothing.
Great. So I think Glenn's internet bottomed out on him. Sent me a message. So we have time for another question?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see here. Actually, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about Dig Games. So that'll be a question for Stuart.
Okay. Well,
what you guys are up to,
what we're up to these days. Yeah, so our biggest project last year, and there's been some continuous updates on that, was our Excavate project, and that we created 6 world cultures for world history for middle school, and took it through the lens of an archaeologist, which our founder is an archaeologist, and she was a middle school teacher, and she's always been trying to find ways to bring archaeology into the classroom as part of a science, but also blending that obviously with the results of archaeology. So Excavate it has been sort of our biggest project that we did last year. We've been actually working on a casual entertainment game recently that's going to be released. But last year, we also concluded research that we did with the National Science Foundation on creating a new global standard for reporting using Experience API. And the idea here was to try and get the industry as a whole, and this is something we saw from our interviews both with administrators, educators, and the industry itself, that some standardization would be helpful. Dr. Owens had done some of this and trying to look at it with the AdAge project and applying that into the GLABS portal. We decided that Experience API, which is being used by the e-learning industry, was the perfect match for the industry because it would be transparent, and with the way we approached it for the standard, it would be interoperable. So if everybody could sort of use this, it would help with reporting and help the industry as a whole with respect to scale for game-based learning. So that was probably one of our biggest projects, and we most recently made that open source, that research, as a community called GBL XAPI.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's one of the promises, I guess, of digital game-based learning, is the scalability of it, right? So yeah, that's quite interesting. Thanks.
Yep.
Sarah?
All right. Well, thank you so much for a great conversation. Definitely wanted to thank our fantastic panelists. So, Amy, Stewart, Glenn, and Glenn, it was great to see you too. And Matthew, this was an amazing dialogue. So, thank you for that. Thank you to everybody who is tweeting with us, as well as everyone who is watching with us and tuning in. So, Tanika, thank you for that last C, communication. That's the one that we missed. So, awesomeness. So, we're going to be taking a short break. You know, it is conference season, so we will be back for our next episode on October the 7th. So that is Sunday, October 7th. We're going to be talking about sketchnoting. So tune in if you can. If you want to be on panel, then you can also do that. We welcome everyone who has something to share about the topic. So you can sign up at podcast.edumatch.org/sign up. And that will get you on as a panelist. So looking forward to seeing everybody next time. And thank you again for everything. All right. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.